If you want massive biceps, you need to understand three things. Number one, any muscle that needs to be brought up should be prioritized. If it's a weaker, underdeveloped muscle, it's likely that you either currently train it as an afterthought or completely neglect it altogether. Number two, you need to make sure that you're picking the right exercises to maximize the effectiveness of the training that you're doing. Despite what you hear online, building muscle is not just about performing 10 to 20 weekly sets and expecting a muscle to grow. Those sets need to count, and you need to pick the correct exercises for any amount of sets to be effective at building muscle. Number three, I used to think it goes without saying, but the truth is, today, this needs to be said. You have to train hard. Intensity is a prerequisite to any of the tips that we apply in the gym. The number of sets don't matter. The number of reps don't matter. The exercise selection doesn't matter. The split doesn't matter if we're not training intensely. So if you have that covered, let's talk about how to actually prioritize the biceps. Most people with poor arm development do the same thing. They train arms as an afterthought. That means they either perform a few sets of curls at the tail end of a back workout after they've been in the gym for an hour or so. That means they likely performed 10 to 12 sets of exercises, including pull downs and rows, and then they expect to maximize their arm development with 3 sets of cable curls to finish off the workout. Or they skip training biceps altogether, thinking that compound lifts are all that's needed. I can't tell you how many guys say things like chin-ups are the best bicep exercise, and yet they have very poor arm development compared to someone who actually prioritizes bicep work. Like any other muscle group, the development of it will come down to just how much you prioritize it. And the best way to do that for biceps is one of two ways. First, you can train biceps on their own day. Whenever you combine body parts in a single training session, your energy and intensity will be divided. Many people today perform push-pull leg workouts where you train the back and then the biceps, you train the chest, shoulders, and then the triceps, and you train legs on a separate day. In this type of split, the biceps are trained at the tail end of an already intense training session, as well as the triceps. This is a great setup for guys who are very arm dominant and need to focus more on bringing up the chest, the shoulders, and the back, but not so great for guys who need to bring up the arms. By performing something like a torso and limb split, an antagonistic split, or simply training the biceps and triceps on their own day while fresh, that'll allow you to hit them with more effective sets, simply because your intensity and focus will be highest at the start of a workout, and you can dedicate an entire arm session to them, rather than trying to come up with the intensity to focus on them after you have already hammered another body part for an hour or so. Alternatively, you can train biceps with another muscle group if that works better with your split, but you should train them first in the session. Torso and limb split is a great example here. Many people think training arms and then moving on to legs is an odd approach, but if you understand the reasoning behind it, it actually makes much more sense. Rather than doing a full upper body session where you run into the same issue of arms again being placed at the tail end of a workout, you can move the bicep and tricep work to the start of your lower body session and perform arm work before legs, which allows you to hit them hardest while intensity is at the highest. And they're not so demanding that it negatively impacts the leg workout that follows. You can do this with any body part. You can train biceps and then move on to shoulders. You can train biceps and then move on to chest, etc. The bottom line, if they're lagging, train them first or train them on their own day. But the next key is picking the right exercises. I always recommend at least 3 exercises for biceps. Biceps should be trained with at least one heavy loading movement to maximize progressive overload, such as a barbell or dumbbell curl. You should focus on getting as strong as possible on these movements over time. You should focus on one movement training the biceps in the fully stretched position, like inclined dumbbell curls or cable curls facing away. Your goal here should be to fully stretch the biceps each rep, which will not only create a better pump, but also induce muscle growth via stretch-mediated hypertrophy. And you should include one movement that places tension on the biceps highest in the contracted position. Machines are great here as well, but something like a spider curl where you're leaning forward with your chest on an incline bench works excellent. But remember, all these tips only apply if your intensity is in check. If you apply all these steps, but you're still training like a none of the previous advice matters. The number one reason most people lack development of a muscle is because they neglect it. The second reason is because they just don't put in enough effort. Many people think that a bicep is a small muscle and a curl is not an intense exercise. But the truth is, how intense an exercise is just comes down to how much effort you apply when performing it. Apply these tips now if you're looking to maximize your bicep development, and if you want the exact training programs that I recommend to build muscle using proven old school bodybuilding methods, check out all my old school mass game programs down below. And as always, if you want to see more of the best original bodybuilding content just like this, make sure to hit subscribe.